Are you a fan of the Book Nerd Diaries? Do you wish you had more of it in your life? Then consider this your formal invitation to become a subscriber to our Patreon page at patreon.com/bndpod, where for as little as $2 a month, you can get special perks like ad-free episodes a full day before anyone else, 2 bonus episodes a month, and episode transcripts, as well as a shout-out at the top of each episode. Our independently created programming depends largely on the contributions of kind listeners like you to keep going, as we currently receive hardly any funding from outside sponsors, so if you'd have the financial means to do so, your monthly contribution can enable us to keep growing and bringing you new content for a long time to come. Sound interesting to you? Then please head on over again to patreon.com/bndpod and become a subscriber today. See you there, book nerds! Page 14, January 15th, 2021. Hello everyone, and I welcome you to another episode of the Book Nerd Diaries, the bite-sized bi-weekly audio journeys of a bookworm through an endless to-read list. My name is Amber, and as always, I'm very happy to be your host and humble book nerd. If you are a returning listener, or just joining us for the first time in this episode, I'm very glad that you're here. As this show is my excuse to talk about the wonderful books I read, I invite you to read along with me if the titles I talk about sound interesting to you. But if you're not a bookworm like me, then that's okay too. I hope my little show can offer you some entertainment and information to keep you company as you go about your day nonetheless. I just wanted to say thank you so much, truly, to our always amazing subscribers on Patreon, Julie and Katie, aka one of the best sisters a girl could ask for. Thank you as well to everyone who has taken the time to leave us a rating or review on Apple Podcasts, shared our posts on social media, or told the book and podcast lovers in their lives about us, which are the very best ways to help our community grow. In whatever form it takes, your support is absolutely vital and deeply appreciated beyond words. Thank you. I have an absolutely wonderful book to talk about today, but before I get to it, I'd like to start things off with the little segment I like to call Not Quite Breaking News, where I share with you the recent book-related news items that I'm most excited about. For our first story, let's go back in time a bit to December 17th, 2020. I know, this segment is called Not Quite Breaking News for good reason. Netflix released on YouTube the first teaser trailer for their incredibly anticipated upcoming series, Shadow and Bone, which brings together the characters of 2 beloved fantasy series by author Leigh Bardugo, the Grisha Trilogy and the Six of Crows duology. Combining the grand warfare and political intrigue of the Grisha Trilogy with the gritty underground criminal world shown in Six of Crows in one unified story is bound to make for an incredibly fun series, and I'm really excited to see the first season when it comes out this April. Secondly, here's a story for the Star Wars fans out there. On January 4th, Lucasfilm released a trailer for its new grand publishing effort called The High Republic. Described as a mega story that will span multiple books and comics, along with an eventual series on Disney+, The High Republic takes place centuries before the original Star Wars trilogy, and illustrates the golden era of the Jedi Order, with all new characters we've never met before. The first 3 books, Light of the Jedi by Charles Soule, A Test of Courage by Justina Ireland, and The Great Jedi Rescue by Cavan Scott, are out now, with more waves of publications to follow soon after. I'm relatively new to Star Wars fandom myself, but getting to go into an entirely uncharted area is more than exciting, and who knows, maybe I'll even cover a book or 2 on this podcast. Thank you very much to the Netflix YouTube account and StarWars.com, respectively, for providing our sources for these stories, which you will find links to in our show notes. With that, dear listeners, we close this edition of Not Quite Breaking News. Now, without further ado, the time has come to move into our main discussion for today. Let's get our book nerd on, people. Trust is truly a delicate thing. Being largely optimistic creatures, we humans put our faith in each other every day in ways both big and small. We trust our families and friends to be there when we seek guidance or just an ear to listen. We trust absolute strangers in the internet with our most intimate thoughts when we post on social media. We trust IT specialists, electricians, plumbers, and other experts to know more than we do when things break down. Whether conscious or not, this trust is one of the most beautiful parts of being alive, and something that binds all of us together as a species. But what do you do when that trust is broken? When someone you had put your absolute faith into proves to not be at all who you had thought they were? Or worse, if you don't know whether you can trust yourself or your own mind anymore. It's one of the most awful, unmooring feelings one can possibly experience, and makes trusting people a whole lot harder afterward. The book that I am thrilled to talk about today, Piranesi by Susanne Clarke, is a twisty, fantastical, psychological maze of a story that constantly has you wondering which way is up, and delights you even as you brace for the next twist in the book's proverbial roller coaster plot. It's more than worth the ticket price. Piranesi is presented as the diary entries of the titled protagonist, a man surviving largely on his own in a world contained entirely within an endless labyrinth of grand rooms full of marble statues, each level containing a delicate ecosystem all its own, that he has to navigate and utilize in order to stay alive. Accompanied in his journey only by the animals that live in this world with him, the skeletons of 13 former inhabitants that he has found throughout the labyrinth, and the occasional visits of a professorly man known only to him as the Other, whom he is assisting in his search to discover the secrets of this world. What Piranesi soon discovers, though, is that there's a whole lot more to this impossible place he's known for so long than he could have possibly imagined. This book initially grabbed my attention when I read the description on Goodreads. This idea of a man surviving alone in such a frankly odd setting seemed so unique and intriguing that I instantly added it to my list, and now, here we are. I don't wish to give away any major spoilers for this book, in case anyone out there would like to read it for themselves, and so now let's do a quick rundown of my favorite aspects of this story, in a segment I like to call the highlight reel. These highlights, in no particular order, are: Number 1, format. Instead of traditional prose, Piranesi is formatted as the journals of our titular hero as he goes throughout his day and studies the world around him. Not only does he describe his work, but he also notes his inventory of items and goes through his day-to-day, which gives the book a sort of intimacy that you can't really achieve otherwise. From page 1, you get to know him and want him to win. Number 2, the world. This is a simple term that Piranesi uses to describe the wondrous maze that is his home. In the lower floors, there are flooded halls teeming with fish and other sea creatures, which have their own tide coming in and out. In the upper halls are swarms of birds that flit among the many intricate marble statues. In between are countless corridors to explore, each with their own secrets. Piranesi has made it his life's work to map them all out and uncover the story of his world, with the help in part of his secretive companion, the Other. Number 3, 16. Between the Other, Piranesi himself, and the 13 human skeletons found within the labyrinth, Piranesi counts 15 inhabitants within his world, but the Other, one day, warns him of a mysterious stranger who has the power to drive people mad with their words, and to stay away from them at all costs. 16, as Piranesi refers to this shadowy antagonist, starts out as a figure to be feared, and the Other an ally to be trusted, as Piranesi's only fellow inhabitant of this world. As the story goes on, however, the lines slowly start to blur between friend and foe, and Piranesi starts to question who he can truly trust. This questioning of loyalty, as well as the dreamy, liminal nature of the world itself, gives the whole book a psychological Hitchcockian feel that is completely unique and a joy to read. I would ultimately highly recommend this book for anyone who likes a little mystery in their storytelling. This book really takes you on a journey that you never know where it may lead you, and makes you question the very nature of reality itself as you go along. So if you choose to read this book, you are buying a ticket for quite the ride. Please be warned, though, that this book deals with kidnapping and psychological abuse. With that, everyone, we have reached the end of our main discussion for today. But fear not, there's still more Book Nerd Diaries after this quick break. Now that we're on the other side of our discussion for today, dear listeners, let's move on to that ultra nerdy part of our show, the Trivia Corner, where I give you a trivia question related to today's book. Since Piranesi largely takes place within the world of an endless labyrinth, I thought it would be fun to talk about another labyrinth you might have heard of. Ready? Your question is, what year was the movie Labyrinth released? Was it A, 1980, B, 1986, or C, 1990? The answer is B, 1986. The now cult classic film, directed by Jim Henson, executive produced by George Lucas, and starring Jennifer Connelly and David Bowie, was released in theaters on June 27, 1986 in the U.S., and December 2nd of the same year in the UK. Strangely enough, 1986 was also the year I was born, which might explain a lot about me, actually. Thank you to Wikipedia, which was my source for this question. We're almost near the end of our episode. Before I go, I'd like to leave you with this episode's listener poll. This time, we'd like to ask you, where is your favorite place in the world? This is a pretty open-ended question, so there won't be any actual poll this time, but if you'd like to weigh in, please feel free to drop me a comment on Facebook or Twitter, which you'll find linked in our show notes, if you're not following us already. We'll be sure to share your answers on our next episode. With that, we have finally come to the end of another show, everyone. Thank you so much again for taking this journey with me. Next week, we'll be releasing a new episode of Storytime for our lovely $5 and $10 tier subscribers on Patreon, and 2 weeks from now, on Friday, January 29th, we'll be back in your main feed with another entry in the Book Nerd Diaries. We'll see you then. The Book Nerd Diaries and its associated shows are written, edited, researched, and hosted by me, Amber Wilchin. Thank you to Kevin MacLeod for the use of our theme song, The Show Must Be Go, and Sincerely Media on Unsplash via Anchor for our wonderful cover art. If you would like to connect with us online, you can follow us on Instagram or Twitter at BNDpod, Facebook at Book Nerd Diaries, or via our website at bndpod.wordpress.com. We also have a Ko-fi page at ko-fi.com/bndpod, where for a small donation you can pass along a special shout-out for someone you love or some good news you'd like to share with the world, and I'll read it out for you on the next episode. If you would like to send any comments, questions, or ideas for future episodes my way, please feel free to drop me an email anytime at bndpod@gmail.com. I love to hear from you. Until next time, everyone, please take care of yourselves and each other. And don't forget to keep on reading.